Good morning, class.
Good morning.
Class, I want to introduce you to Professor Fizzle from the Van Hizzle solar system. He's a renowned chemist. To what do we owe this honor, Professor?
Professor Fizzle and his assistants quickly assembled a lab table with an array of chemistry experiments. Professor Fizzle walked behind the table and began to speak.
My laboratory makes many of the galaxy's most prized mixtures and solutions. We are always on the lookout for potential chemists in training. Let me see if there is one amongst you that is suitable to join us.
Emelia sat up straight in her chair, Gil flexed his muscles, Olza flew up and raised his hand. Mika shyly hid behind her tablet.
Most interesting.
He scratched his chin and continued.
Let's get down to business, shall we? Cosmicon Academy's second competition is meant to measure your ability to learn and master new concepts. Ms. Lagrange did not know that I would be arriving today, nor did she know what scientific concept I would be teaching you. The administration wanted to see how you hold up to pressure when she hasn't had time to prepare you.
Ms. Lagrange looked furious.
As you pointed out, it is my job to prepare the students. But we haven't covered mixtures and solutions yet. Is it really necessary to cause them unnecessary stress?
Absolutely. That is the point, and since it is the administration's wish that you are not present during this lesson. Farewell.
Professor Fizzle looked sternly at Ms. Lagrange.
Before I leave, may I have a quick word with my students?
One word.
Professor Fizzle spoke with finality. The students hurried over to Ms. Lagrange.
Don't worry, kiddos. He is just trying to scare you, but I know better. You are the brightest students he's likely to encounter. Enjoy yourself and learn as much as you can. He really is a great scientist. I know you guys can do it. I'll be watching.
She waved and left the lab. The students nervously returned to their tables.
Today I will be teaching you about mixtures and solutions. It is your job to learn what I teach you and demonstrate mastery of this concept by the end of today's lesson. Failure to do so will result in a reduction of points and a severe drop in your Cosmicon ranking. It was quite the shock to see you all win the last competition. It is highly unlikely that you will maintain that lead.
Professor Fizzle said and eyed the students suspiciously.
Let's start now. Mixtures are combinations of two or more substances. Put one kind of thing and another kind of thing together and you've got a mixture. Put boys and girls in a room and you have a mixture of boys and girls. Put salt and water together and you have a mixture of salt water. Solutions are a type of mixture where one substance gets dissolved into another. Does anybody know what dissolved means?
Professor Fizzle looked at Emelia but she didn't know the answer. She was so embarrassed. Mika luckily raised her hand and Emelia was thankful that at least one of her classmates knew.
Yes.
Professor Fizzle called on Mika.
It means to break down into smaller pieces.
Very good. So let's look at the differences between these two. We are going to make a simple mixture now.
Robot assistants passed each student different substances in different bowls.
Pour the cashew nuts into the large bowl. Now pour the raisins into the large bowl with the cashew nuts. Lastly, pour the chocolate into the bowl.
I love this mixture.
As do I. And I shall let you taste it if you answer me this.
Professor Fizzle looked at Emelia with narrowed eyes.
What is a mixture?
A combination of two or more substances, Professor.
Good job, young lady. Now you may taste the mixture.
The three students snacked for a moment, while robots brought them two new substances.
Now, we are going to make a solution. Pour the sugar into the water. Take the spoon and stir. Remember, there are ways to speed up the dissolving process. Stirring is one. Heating up the mixture is the other.
Professor Fizzle noticed that Gil was stirring too ferociously.
Easy does it, my young muscular student.
Sorry, sir. I thought I might try to exercise while stirring.
Professor Fizzle laughed.
Give me your observations, please.
The sugar is gone. It disappeared.
Wrong, my little flighty friend. Use the magnifying glass and see for yourself. When sugar and other substances dissolve in water, they simply break down into small pieces.
I get it. So dissolving does not mean disappear. It means being broken down into tiny pieces.
Yes. Exactly. So let's look at the key differences between mixtures and solutions. and try to keep up and remember, or else you will tank the end of lesson challenge.
Emelia frantically typed notes on her pad.
The difference between a simple mixture and a solution is as follows. Mixtures and solutions both have a combination of two or more substances. Also, they both have substances that can be separated using science tools. Now let's look at how mixtures and solutions are different. Mixtures have key characteristics that solutions do not. First, substances in a mixture are not dissolved and are mixed together unevenly. Second, their substances keep their physical properties. And third, their substances can be more easily separated. Now let's look at how solutions are different from mixtures. The key characteristics of solutions are: first, their substances are dissolved and are mixed together evenly. Second, their substances' physical properties are changed. And third, their substances cannot easily be separated. Let's look at our mixtures that we made and examine if the key facts that we mentioned in the Venn diagram are correct.
I can take the first one, Professor.
Go ahead then, young lady.
None of the substances, such as the cashews, raisins, or chocolate, have been dissolved. Moreover, they are mixed unevenly with each other. For example, there are 2 big pieces of chocolate here, while over on this side of the bowl, there are no pieces of chocolate.
Absolutely right.
I'll take the second point. Looking at the substances in the mixture, I see that their shape, size, and textures have not changed. The cashew is still shaped like a cashew, its size hasn't been broken down, and it is still smooth like it was before.
Right as well.
I suppose I'll go next. We can separate this mixture easily with our hands, by picking them out and sorting them. See.
He quickly reached into the bowl and pulled out the different ingredients and separated them.
Although technically correct, a scientist always uses his science tools. Now we must bring it to the next level. Solutions. Take the first bubble, please.
Professor pointed to Emelia.
Yes, sir. When we look at the sugar water with a hand lens, we see the tiny bits of sugar are mixed evenly into the water. Every taste of the water will be the same as the last.
Gil gulped it all down.
She's right.
I'll go next. We can see that the sugar size has changed. It was broken down into smaller pieces.
Correct. But now comes the hard part. How do we separate solutions?
None of the students volunteered.
I thought you might not know. So listen up. There are multiple tools scientists can use for separating mixtures and solutions. They are as follows: a coffee filter, sieve, magnet, and hot plate.
As he said this, the tools appeared in the air, spinning slowly as if on display.
So cool.
Very cool.
So cool.
Each one of these tools separates specific types of substances. For example, a sieve will separate large substances from smaller ones. It would separate a pebble from sand.
I know what coffee filters can separate. My parents use them all the time to separate small coffee grinds from water. So the filters would probably separate any small substance from water.
Way to go, young lady. Now how about the magnet?
Professor Fizzle pointed at Olza.
It would be useful for separating magnetic material from non-magnetic material, sir.
Correct. And hot plate?
Sir, I know that the hot plate causes things to heat up. It also can cause water and other liquids to boil, but I don't see how that helps us separate anything.
And I don't blame you for not seeing it. It's not easy to predict the answer without having seen it happen before.
Professor Fizzle patted Gil on the shoulder.
What will happen when all the water has been boiled away?
Gil looked around at his classmates for help.
Think, my muscular friend. What will be left in the beaker?
Gil's teeth clattered as he made a guess.
The beaker will be empty, sir.
Not at all correct, but I am satisfied with the effort. Let's observe.
Professor Fizzle put a beaker on a hot plate, then poured water and sugar into the beaker. Moments later the water began to boil.
Turning the heat up.
Professor Fizzle muttered to himself. The water quickly boiled out until the beaker looked completely empty.
Now, come up here and observe what remains at the bottom of the beaker.
The students went up to Professor's lab table and took turns looking at the bottom of the beaker.
Is that sugar?
Yes, it is. The water has all evaporated, leaving behind the dissolved particles of sugar.
Gil reached in and tasted the white substance at the bottom of the beaker.
Delicious.
Professor Fizzle's eyes narrowed.
10 points deducted from your score for tasting the science lab materials.
Gil hung his head and returned to his lab table.
Cheer up, Gil. You can win back those points in the end of lesson competition.
Student, reach into the bag and pick your mixture. Some of you will be the lucky ones and pick a very simple one. Others will pick a very complex one with many substances.
He held out the bag and Emelia grabbed a slip of paper. The slip of paper rose into the air and grew until it was large enough for everyone to read.
Your mixture is a solution of water, salt, pepper, iron filings, and pebbles. Most unlucky.
That is the most challenging one.
Professor commented. Emelia felt worried as she saw each of the classmates picking mixtures with fewer ingredients than hers. Robot assistants approached each of the students with trays packed full of science tools for separating mixtures. Emelia looked down at her tray and realized that she would probably be using all of them.
Now comes the competition. You will be making the mixture using the substances provided to you. Afterwards, you will use the science tools to separate them. Scores will be based on using the proper tool to separate the correct material. All materials must be separated. If you are unable to complete the activity, you will not receive credit. Afterwards, you will be quizzed about your knowledge of mixtures and solutions. You have 10 minutes to make and separate your mixture. The countdown starts now.
Emelia hurriedly placed the different substances in a bowl and mixed them. After mixing, she felt quite sure that this mixture could never be separated and sighed. To her surprise, Professor Fizzle was standing over her.
Too difficult, isn't it?
No, sir. I'm just thinking.
Thinking is good.
Professor Fizzle said and moved on to the next table. Emelia examined each of the tools and then began to place them in order by which one should be used first. She played out the separation process in her head many times, but there always seemed a problem. She scratched her head while trying to remember what the sieve separates.
5 minutes left.
Olza was the first one to successfully separate his mixture. He then had to walk over and be quizzed by Professor Fizzle's lab assistants. Mika finished second. Gil finished third. They both went to the lab assistants to be quizzed. Now all that remained was Emelia and her overly complex mixture.
1 minute left.
I've got it, sir.
She replied and began the process.
First use the sieve to separate the pebbles from the rest of the mixture. Then use the coffee filter to separate the salt water from the pepper and iron fillings. After that, use the magnet to separate the iron filings from the pepper. Lastly, boil the water until the water evaporates out. Then you'll be left with salt in the beaker. At this point, all the ingredients of my mixture are separated.
Professor Fizzle's eyes widened.
Impressive. Very impressive, Emelia. I'll be keeping my eyes on your progress. Let's see how you do with my assistants.
The assistants handed her a sheet of paper and pencil.
Create a Venn diagram explaining the key characteristics of mixtures and solutions.
They instructed together. Emelia walked over to her table and filled out her diagram. The assistants examined her work before nodding.
It looks like we are ready to move to the next class. You'll get your scores tomorrow, as well as the updated ranks.
Professor Fizzle and his assistants left the students. Ms. Lagrange entered the classroom shortly after.
Professor Fizzle just informed me that he was most impressed with you all. I'm so proud. Dinner is on me.